I have a question for you. What would you do? How would you respond? How would you feel if you got the definite sense, if you heard, in a way, or understood that Jesus was in front of you saying, will you let me into your boat? Will you let me more deeply into your life? Just kind of think about that for a little bit, will you? What would you do if it was very real to you that Jesus was saying, will you let me more into your boat, into your life? How would it feel? Before we get too far down the road answering the question, I think might be worthy to be a little cautious about it. You get it? Because of the examples we have in today's readings. We've got Isaiah. This is the beginning of Isaiah's ministry as a prophet. He's comfortable, he comes from a good family, he's got a job in the court, and he's all set up, and then he sees this great vision, and in this vision, he realizes that in the vision of God and his angels, how sinful he is, and then in that he says, I'm a sinful man, go away from me, and then he says, well, we'll come and purify you and all the people, and then he sends him out as a prophet. So kind of what happens to him, what happened with the other two, and happens to us, is it begins step by step. One thing leads to another thing, which leads to another thing, which is why I say we need to be cautious about how we answer that question if we really mean our answer. Another example from Paul in the second reading, where he says, well, I was born out of course because I was a persecutor. So as we know, he was very passionate in the Jewish religion and in defending God and the law. Very passionate about that. And on his way to Damascus to arrest more people, he was struck down and turned blind. And Jesus appeared before him saying, let me get into your boat. He was sent to Damascus blind, and there he recovered his sight and then was commissioned after he learned more about Jesus and met him to go on and proclaim the gospel, especially to the Gentiles. And it was quite a thing in his life. One thing led to another. And of course with Peter's innocently there after a useless night trying to catch fish. He's cleaning his nets. Jesus gets into his boat, puts him out a little bit from the shore, and then after he preaches and teaches people, then he says, send out into the deep. And they go, look, we already did this. And we came up with nothing. But taking the next step, he says, if you tell me, okay, I'll do it and see what happens. I know you're a carpenter, but hey, whatever. All right, so he sends out into the deep. He catches a whole bunch of fish. He says, depart from me, for I'm a sinful man. Another step. Jesus says, don't worry about that. From now on, you'll be catching men and women. And so he is going to be sent as well. One thing leads to another, which leads to another. When we say to Jesus, sure, you can get in my boat. We need to be ready to have our lives changed a little bit, or a lot, as it did for them. Because there is within each of us more to our life than we know. There's more life energy. There's more of God's Spirit in us than we're even aware of. Did anybody read the paper this morning? There's an inspired section here. I kind of take a look at that. And it says, this is about a woman named Winifred Franklin. For 3 years, she enjoyed retirement. For 3 years, she enjoyed retirement. But it got old quick, and she didn't. So, at the age of 72, armed with a resume that included a job at RCA during World War II, she went to a hiring fair for a new giant supermarket that was opening in Audubon, Pennsylvania in 1996. It took perhaps a little bit of being brave, she said, recalling applying for a job in her 70s at the Montgomery County store. Franklin's bravery paid off. She was hired as a bakery associate, working on her feet from 6 to 9 a.m., up to 6 days a week, a job she still works today at the age of 94. Wow, this changed my life, she said. Now I'm a part of a team that makes something happen. She had a life, she wanted to live it. That's just on the activity level. I knew somebody when I was still in the seminary, relative kind of a thing, and I came home one time after I was ordained, and I came home and stopped at Devani's to get some lunch, and there she is, 90-something, at Devani's working. And I said, "Is that you?" And yes, it was. But I don't have to go to those things. I know people in this parish who, after they retired, are busier now than they say than they were when they're still working. What's going on there? What's going on there is that there's more life in us than we know. And God wants to spend it, especially in our faith. An example would be that today we said 35 of our people went to feed my starving children. And along with other volunteers, they filled 301 boxes, enough to feed 179 people for an entire year. Took them an hour and a half. Do something with your life, is what Jesus says. If he gets into your boat, you let him into your boat, he's going to say, do something for your life. And they have a job for just about anybody for an hour and a half. Or going to Loaves and Fishes, or our food shelf here, ways that we can help there, or over at Veep, and bridging, and Meals on Wheels, and the whole deal. You want Jesus to get in your boat, to get to know him more personally? Then one step leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to feeding the starving, clothing the naked, fishing, making disciples of all. And more than that, it's just not activity. It's also coming to know the Lord more personally, deeper in our heart. Put out into the deep is what Jesus says. He wants to enter more deeply into our heart. No, I'm good. That's okay. If somebody had that response, I think I could understand that. Or do we really desire something more out of life? Do we desire something more out of our relationships? It seems like we're just skimming the surface, honey. We haven't had any deep conversations for a long time. I need to have something more meaningful than that. Can we talk more? Can we share our lives, our hearts more? That's what we are motivated to do, because love seeks intimacy that kind of way. And to let Jesus more deeply into our hearts means that we grow in doing things like this, understanding other people. Instead of just shooting off our mouths when we hear something we don't like, it's like, okay, tell me more about that. Let me see if I can understand. It's being brought to a place of forgiveness that we never thought we would be because of God's action in our lives. A sense of compassion, a sense of love, and as I said before, a sense of reaching out to others. Because we have come to see and to know Jesus in a different way. And step by step, he leads us deeper and deeper into life. And as Paul said, when we get to those parts where it's like, I don't know what I don't have it. He says, but by the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace has worked through me. It's a wonderful thing to know that, to experience that in our own lives. I don't know how I could do that, but I did. I don't know where those words came from, but they were there. It's from our God, who wants to be in our boat, who wants to be more deeply into our hearts. And so I ask you again, if Jesus said, would you let me come into your boat? What would you say? That's basically the question he asks us anytime we receive the Eucharist.